Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Byline. I'm Savani.
And I'm Sabine.
And we're the co-founders of Hidden Compass. We're here with Anna Richards, who wrote a multi-generational story about ceremony, celebration, and war for our summer 2022 issue. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
I want to know about your origin story as a writer specifically. What first motivated you to start writing?
So I started writing at a young age. So I started keeping a diary when I was about 5 years old. And I have kept a diary ever since, which is hugely incriminating to anyone who comes across them. But I only started writing for a public audience during the first lockdown. When I traveled, I would often write I suppose, travel article style pieces that I would just send back either as emails or as letters to friends and family. But it was more just to entertain them and just, give them a bit more of an idea about what I was doing rather than what I could fit on a postcard. And then when the first lockdown hit, I was out of work for a few months. Obviously incredibly bored, a complete loose end, and I started writing and sending what I was writing to magazines, and it built from there, really.
Well, there's a silver lining to lockdown. We're, sad that you had to go through that, but also we're glad that you are writing and that you are writing for us.
Definitely.
Well, I'm delighted to be writing for you guys. I wanted to write for Hidden Compass for a while. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Speaking of writing for us, this story is about wartime conscription parties, including during the World Wars. So what was it like for you to envision and report this piece at a time when stability in Europe once again feels threatened?
So interesting. I think there's been a kind of a big evolution, an escalation of what's been going on in Europe since I first heard about the conscript. Because I heard about the conscript back in the autumn, actually quite soon after moving to France, because one of my friends who was celebrating his conscript, a guy called Joss, who's in the piece that I've written, was very heavily involved in the planning of this year's conscript. And I first heard about it really just because he was always busy and it was impossible to make plans with him because he had some kind of commitment to help plan the conscript most weekends. So when I first heard about it, conflict hadn't broken out in Ukraine yet, and I'd had this plan to go along to his conscript before any of this happened. And then, seeing conflict break out in Europe, I mean, initially you read about it in the news, but I suppose initially it doesn't feel very real because you're not seeing the effects of it firsthand. And then sort of in the weeks that followed going to the conscript, it's something that becomes a little bit more apparent. Like I bumped into a Ukrainian refugee who was lost not far from my home. You obviously start reading a lot more about it in the news. You start hearing a lot more personal stories. And actually tomorrow, my mum has a Ukrainian refugee moving in. So I suppose there's been this kind of whole evolution of that kind of going alongside my experience of the conscript.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see, oftentimes with us and other publications too, the story gets pitched months and months before it's actually published and everything can change. And so it definitely added additional context and a certain amount of gravitas to your story.
Yeah, and I think it definitely it does make you think a bit more as well about the context of the conscript. And I mean, I've grown up hearing wartime stories from my grandparents and even my dad, who was a lot older, so was a child during the Second World War. So you hear these firsthand stories, but I think that when something happens this close to home as well, it probably does make you look at something like wartime conscription parties in a slightly different light.
Right, absolutely.
Well, it's certainly a wonderful story, and it makes us think about our time in the present moment, but also makes us think about the past. And I encourage everyone watching this who hasn't already read it to go and read it. And if you are moved by it, or you enjoy it, or you learn something, consider contributing to the Stories campaign. It's an incredible opportunity for you as a reader to directly support our partnership with Anna. So she will receive 50% of the proceeds of that campaign on top of her article pay, and the other 50% go to us so that we can continue to publish pieces like this. Anna, what would you say to people who have already contributed to your campaign?
Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. I think that writing for Hidden Compass it's been an experience quite unlike any writing for any publication I've written for before, because it's been so thorough, it's been so in depth, there's been so many different stages, so it's really challenged me in the writing process, but it's been really refreshing as well to write a piece where so much time is taken over it as well, and so many people get to have an input. So that's why it's great to contribute as well, because you know that the stories that Hidden Compass are publishing have been through so many stages. They've been really, really thought out. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Anna. We appreciate that. Like Sabine said, go read the story, contribute to the campaigns, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.